After everything that has happened, Bill never imagined that he would find himself caught in a spiral of doubt and bitterness like this. In the early days of his marriage to Hayley, he truly believed he had found his soulmate, a fresh start after years of uncertainty in previous relationships. But it turned out that all the sweetness, the vows that seemed unbreakable, were just a trap woven with lies and personal ambition. When all the secrets were finally exposed, when Bill saw the undeniable evidence of Hayley's betrayal, he felt a quiet collapse within himself. The shame of being made a victim of a marriage charade, where the partner was never genuine, stirred within Bill a cold, ruthless anger and logic. There was no need for noise, no need for lengthy explanations. Bill decisively ended the marriage that had been rotten from the inside. He didn't give Hayley a chance to explain, leaving no hope for the gold digger who had used every trick to insert herself into his life. Bill's resolute silence, his icy gaze, and his indifferent attitude were the irreparable sentence for Hayley, forcing her to leave his life in utter humiliation and despair. But things didn't end there. Hayley's departure was just the end of a series of lies, and the beginning of another hidden wave, silently waiting to explode. Dany, the woman who had once been Bill's entire world, now stood before the opportunity to return to him. But inside her, a jumble of conflicting emotions stirred. Dany had once sworn she had forgotten Bill, that the old wounds no longer haunted her, and that her current life was fuller and much calmer. Yet that promise was nothing but a mask, a weak self-deception in front of a heart that had never truly let go. Every time she heard Bill's name, every time their eyes met in a crowd, Dany could distinctly feel the burning ache in her chest. She tried to avoid places where she might run into him, filled the void with new relationships, work, and long trips, but the more she ran, the more she realized that she was still a weak and helpless soul before the old emotions. The day Bill learned the truth about Hayley's imaginary child, he chose not to publicly expose everything, for he knew the more he exposed, the more shame it would bring, not only to Hayley but to himself as well. Instead, Bill chose a silent revenge, using his success, calm demeanor, and ability to control everything to show Hayley that she had never truly won. He dug deep into the weakest parts of Hayley's new life, making sure she would never find her way back into high society or find another stable place. Bill coldly watched the rapid downfall of the woman who once held his complete trust, focusing all his energy on rebuilding the truly meaningful relationships in his life. However, deep inside, Bill still wrestled with an unnamed loneliness, as all the glory and success seemed meaningless without someone who could understand, share, and listen. At this time, Dany re-entered Bill's orbit, not loudly, not hastily, just a few chance meetings that eventually turned into long conversations late into the night, moments where they unknowingly turned to each other whenever they felt vulnerable. Both realized that the wounds of the past had not healed, but now they were no longer the same naive children swept away by emotions. Dany understood the value of trust and dignity, and Bill knew how to hide his pain and control fleeting urges. They cautiously tested each other, challenging their hearts, both longing for healing, yet afraid to face failure once more. The old feelings of attraction crept in, making it impossible for either of them to completely move on, even though they both claimed to have let go of the past. Sometimes, with the pain of betrayal still not fully healed. In a society full of scrutinizing eyes and constant rumors, Bill and Dany had to fight against themselves, against invisible pressures, and the fear of being hurt once more. Dany's return to Bill's life wasn't a fairy tale ending, but a journey full of challenges, where both had to learn to forgive, courageously face the truth, and give each other a chance to repair what had been broken. As all the secrets slowly came to light, when the scars of the past no longer stung, they understood that only true love could withstand all the storms. But to have it, they would both have to let go of their pride and the fear that had held them back for so long. As an outsider who had caused his fair share of trouble for the Dupree family, Bill was always a thorn in their side. No matter how much Dany tried to explain or defend him, couldn't change that fact. Bill's presence reminded them of failures, The hurts Dany had suffered, the scandals, and the rumors that persisted like a stain in the history of a family that prided itself on its reputation. The Dupree family, with their unbreakable principles, always put collective interests above personal feelings, and they would never tolerate any threat to the image and power they had painstakingly built. Therefore, even the slightest gesture from Dany toward Bill would ignite the simmering anger within each member. The first to oppose this reunion would certainly be Vernon, the pillar of the family and the symbol of their pride and fear of losing power to outsiders. For Vernon, Bill represented all potential dangers, not only a threat to Dany but also a shadow of the dark past he had tried to hide from the world. Vernon understood that any misstep could dig up old secrets about his mistakes or the covert deals made years ago, which could directly affect his position in the community and the unity within the family. Moreover, Anita, the powerful and sharp woman, would never accept Bill becoming a part of the family, as she had paid a heavy price for the trust and weakness of the female members. Anita wouldn't hesitate to use any secret she held about Bill, from his involvement in shady financial dealings to his lingering ties with Dany, to stop any efforts at reconciliation or reunion. Anita always believed that protecting Dany meant eradicating everything related to Bill, even the memories that had once made her daughter happy. The Dupree family was famous for their control and information concealment, and this time they were ready to use Bill's past as a weapon, unleashing untold stories to ruin him in Dany's eyes and the public's view. They would even use their social connections to completely isolate Bill from the power and protection of those who had once been his friends or partners. Meanwhile, Hayley, after the shock of losing the imaginary child and having Bill expose her entire deception, refused to give up and became even more dangerous. From the depths of despair, Hayley began to hatch a plan for revenge against both Bill and Dany. She wasn't afraid to fabricate new lies, including creating fake evidence of Dany's infidelity or rumors related to the shady investments Bill had been involved in. Hayley knew Dany's weakness was her obsession with family honor, and Bill's weakness was his pride, which wouldn't allow him to be controlled or publicly humiliated. Therefore, she always targeted those vulnerabilities, sowing doubt, stirring conflict, and using every opening to drive a wedge between them with cunning and deep malice. In this context, every meeting between Bill and Dany became a hot topic. Every glance, every intimate gesture was closely watched not only by the family members but also by the surrounding community. The invisible pressure slowly wore down both of them, forcing Dany to face choices she had never wanted to make. Either defy her family to protect her feelings or sacrifice her private happiness to preserve her family's honor. Bill increasingly felt isolated, lost in a world where he was always seen as an outsider with no right to be forgiven. Meanwhile, Hayley kept setting traps, waiting for the right moment to strike a final blow. Behind all of this, the secrets about Bill's past, the shady investments, and the suspicious dealings with the Dupree family still smoldered like a ticking time bomb, ready to explode at any moment, dragging countless consequences with it. In the whirlwind of doubt and hatred, no one could be sure if Dany would have the strength to face it all, or if she would return to the safety of the path her family had laid out. As for Bill, he had to choose between continuing to fight for love or giving it all up to save himself from the quagmire of secrets and lies piling up around him. When Dany began publicly rekindling her relationship with Andre, everything seemed to be falling into a safe and secure rhythm, but in reality, it was a series of tumultuous days where every emotion was as unstable and fragile as a thread hanging between the past and the present. Andre was the man who always longed for a genuine relationship, a place where he could truly be himself and be valued for who he was, not as a temporary solution to fill a void. When he was with Ashley, Andre clearly felt important, valued. Dany, no matter how strong and proud she was, couldn't hide the deep emotional wounds from her tumultuous divorce with Bill. She was still tethered to the past by invisible strings, memories that had never been resolved. Andre slowly realized that despite his best efforts, Dany had never fully given her heart to him, because in that heart, there was always a place that Bill had carved out, even if everything seemed to have ended. Deciding to have an honest conversation with Dany was the only way Andre could free himself from the relationship that no longer had a foundation. But in reality, it was not as simple as he had hoped. The thought of ending everything with Dany left Andre torn, with one part of him wanting to return to the safe haven with Ashley, and the other part consumed with the fear of the emptiness he would feel if he left Dany at her weakest. It was at that time, when Hayley's miscarriage shook everything up, that Andre found Dany in a state of extreme hurt, her eyes filled with pain and confusion, making it impossible for him to be as resolute as he had planned. Andre's soft heart in the face of Dany's pain was understandable because there still existed an emotional tie between them, one that could not be named but was strong enough to make every resolution vanish in a moment. Every time Andre tried to take a step back, Dany would pull him back, sometimes just with a pleading look, a quiet request, or simply her vulnerable silence that made it impossible to let go. Andre felt trapped in a cycle of emotions, wanting to escape from Dany to start a new journey with Ashley, but not strong enough to let go of someone who was hurting to such an extent. Although Andre knew he was only Dany's second choice, he still clung to the hope that one day, Dany would realize his true worth. But the longer he waited, the more he realized her heart had never left Bill. When Andre discovered Dany still had ties with Bill, the secret meetings, the regretful and longing looks every time the two of them crossed paths, he felt like an outsider in his own relationship. This wasn't just jealousy, it was the feeling of betrayal by his own expectations, the feeling of helplessness when he realized he was never the first choice. The simmering jealousy transformed into lasting regret and torment, causing Andre to wrestle between the decision to let go and his instinct to stay, hoping that everything would eventually change. But when Dany was truly faced with the choice to go back to Bill, Andre had to face the truth that all his efforts had been in vain. His departure wasn't a painful end, but a release for both of them, so Dany could freely live true to her feelings, and Andre could find a love that was complete and fair, where he was never second in any story. Perhaps Andre would return to Ashley, where he felt peace and could be himself, but deep inside, the echoes of regret and unnamed sorrow for a love that was never truly his would remain. If he didn't have the courage to leave Dany, Andre would continue to sink deeper into the whirlpool of jealousy and emptiness, forever the outsider in his own love story, where every decision ultimately belonged to the woman he loved to the fullest. When Dany began to realize she couldn't continue to share Andre with Ashley, an inevitable tension started to rise between her and the man she once thought would be her final destination. Their relationship, though not yet officially built on solid ground, was swept into a vortex of unclear emotions and missing pieces in each of their hearts. Dany tried to convince herself that she could love Andre, that their relationship would be strong enough to overcome every challenge. But deep inside, she couldn't separate herself from the image of Bill, the man who had broken her heart but was also the only one who could make her feel alive in the sweetest, most promising moments. Andre realized this before anyone else noticed the cracks forming. He realized he couldn't continue living in the shadow of another man, and he couldn't accept a relationship where Dany was always looking to the past instead of the future. The feeling of being left behind, always a part of a relationship with Dany, made Andre understand that he needed his own life, a genuine relationship where he wouldn't have to wrestle with the remnants of an old love. And then that moment came when Andre left Ashley, the one he believed would be a new start, a love that could help him overcome the wounds of the past. But he returned to the beginning, seeking Dany just before Hayley's miscarriage, a painful, inevitable event that tested all of Andre's decisions. He stood between two worlds, between the choice of reason and the weakness of his heart. Dany, who was struggling with immense pain, made it impossible for him to be decisive. She had never been someone who could easily let go of the past, and this made Andre feel more and more like an outsider in this relationship. But when he witnessed Dany's suffering from Hayley's shock, all of Andre's decisions seemed to push him into an unavoidable situation. He looked into Dany's tired and helpless eyes, and suddenly all of his firm plans seemed insignificant. Would Andre have the courage to break up with Dany? Or would he soften again, falling back into the emotional vortex she had unconsciously created? His feelings for Dany were not simply love. They were also compassion, the desire to protect that girl from wounds that had never healed. But could Dany truly give her heart to Andre when she still had ties to Bill? However, like all mysterious relationships in life, things never go as planned. When Andre felt that his relationship with Dany would never be more than a temporary choice, he decided to say everything. But then, a sudden change in Dany's feelings made it impossible for him to do so. Her emotions were like a fire burning deep inside, leaving Andre confused and unfamiliar with what he was experiencing. Was she really in love with him? Or was she simply seeking comfort in a love she had never fully dared to let go of? And then Hayley, with her cold gaze and dangerous eyes, once again stepped into the lives of Andre and Dany. After the miscarriage shock, Hayley relentlessly sought revenge on those who had hurt her. She knew how to manipulate Dany's emotions, and now, her goal was to break up the relationship between Dany and Andre. Could she fabricate new lies to draw Dany back to her? Or would she continue to create situations that forced Andre to make even more difficult decisions? Everything seemed to have gone too far, and Andre began to realize that, no matter how hard he tried, the love between him and Dany was still just a game of fate. Dany couldn't escape the past, and perhaps she would never find peace for herself. This made Andre feel more and more that he was merely a substitute, a stepping stone for Dany to continue her life. But when he discovered that Dany still had feelings for Bill, he couldn't help but feel the bitterness. Had he always just been a substitute for a love that would never die in her heart? With secrets yet to be revealed and tense situations waiting ahead, Andre was forced to make the final decision. Would he have the courage to let go and start over with Ashley, the one person who made him feel completely loved? Or would he drown in regret and jealousy, becoming a part of a love story that would never have an ending? The truth might be that he was just running away from a love that had never truly been his.